In Minnesota, we take care of each other, and during COVID, frontline workers in Minnesota stepped up, risking their own health and safety to make sure that our state was healthy, safe, fed, and protected. These Minnesotans showed up every day to keep our economy working. And as a meat packer, Nancy Caravantes from Worthington told state legislatures during her testimony last year for frontline worker pay, we can't do a Zoom meeting to cut meat. Or Tony Ramberg, our meat cutter at the Super One Foods grocery store in Baxter, he said, I've seen the hoarding, all the back and forth with masks, the uncertainty about how the virus spread at the beginning, and it was stressful. It was really stressful for all of those grocery store workers throughout the state and for all frontline essential workers. Working from home was not an option for them, which is why we worked hard to get $500 million from our budget surplus set aside to ensure that workers get a small token of appreciation for their hard work and that sacrifice. And over the pandemic, we saw what it means to really be essential. Now we're a little halfway through the application process, and we're thrilled to see so many Minnesotans coming forward. We also know that there are others who haven't heard about this or just haven't been able to apply yet. So we are here today to remind people to apply if you are eligible before the July 22nd deadline. Next up is Casey.
Hi, I'm Casey Copeland, and I work at the first unionized Starbucks in Minneapolis over on 47th and Cedar. Yeah. And I'm an essential worker. For those of you who are asking yourselves, how could a coffee shop possibly be essential? Someone had to keep all the healthcare workers caffeinated when they're working infinite hours. But it's also much more than that. Throughout the pandemic, we were a constant for people. One of my favorite regulars at our store moved here in the height of the pandemic, and she told us we were the only people that she saw or talked to in person for months. Starbucks claimed that they would make every effort to keep us safe, to put in policies for enhanced cleaning routines, and would prioritize our safety, saying, quote, "No one should have to choose between their job and their health." Starbucks did not deliver on their promise. Across the country, there were and still are horror stories of their negligence when it comes to prioritizing our safety. But something magical happens when you come together. The formation of unions across the country has led to improved conditions in pay and will continue to improve more and more as more stores join the movement. But the nice thing about the state of Minnesota is that they saw us. They saw our dedication and hard work and sacrifice, the risks that we took. We didn't need a union for them to acknowledge our value. And now they're offering us a token of appreciation for the work that we did. They're acknowledging the sacrifices that we make. So please, to Starbucks employees and other food service workers and essential workers alike, apply. You are essential, and the state of Minnesota wants to acknowledge you for the services that you provide.
Yeah, that's right.
Hola, mi nombre es Priestley y hoy estoy aquí acompañando a Setu.
Good afternoon, my name is Priestley and I'm here today with Setul.
Estoy celebrando el progreso que hemos tenido con los trabajadores de primera línea.
And I'm here celebrating today the progress that we've made and achieved with the frontline worker pay.
Me enorgullece correr la voz para que todos los trabajadores esenciales salgan y apliquen.
I'm really proud to be able to spread the word about the pay so that all workers who are eligible can get out and apply.
Yo ya apliqué, fue bien fácil, me tomó menos de 15 minutos llenarla.
I applied already. It was easy. It took less than 15 minutes to complete the application.
Por eso ahora quiero asegurarme que todos
And that's why I want to make sure that everybody who is eligible has that same opportunity.
es importante que estos resultados que se han tenido fueron gracias por todas las personas que trabajaron, que no fueron de primer idioma inglés.
You know, the way that the state has been able to keep going throughout the pandemic has been thanks to many workers, a lot of whom their first language is not English.
So, gracias a la aplicación tiene varios idiomas y es posible que todos podamos aplicar en nuestro propio idioma.
And we're grateful that the application is available in so many different languages and people are able to apply in the language that they feel most comfortable.
Al igual estoy orgullosa de las organizaciones que nos siguen apoyando. En caso de que no puedan ustedes mismos aplicar, les pueden ayudar a llenarlas.
And I'm also proud of the many organizations that are supporting people in applying if people have questions or need support in making that application possible.
Para la comunidad inmigrante, ustedes también pueden calificar. No importa que no tengan o no puedan recibir ningún beneficio del gobierno, también pueden.
And I want to say to my immigrant community, you are also eligible and able to apply even though sometimes you may not qualify for many benefits that the government can offer.
Hay muchas organizaciones que están ayudando, pero CETUL tiene Facebook en el cual ustedes pueden poner sus preguntas.
There's many organizations that are helping workers apply. For instance, Setul, you can go to the Facebook and ask questions and look for opportunities to get help in supporting and filling out the application.
Al igual es por llamadas si alguien no tiene Facebook o no sabe utilizarlo.
You can also call if Facebook is not a way that you're able to make connection or don't feel comfortable with that.
El mensaje que les quiero dar es que todos trabajamos duro en esta pandemia para mantener al Estado fluyendo. Todos nos arriesgamos sin tener los métodos de precaución al principio y todos merecemos recibir el bono.
And the message that I want to leave to the workers that kept this state running and going throughout the pandemic, and for many people without the protections that we now have and are able to, we deserve this pay. We worked for this pay, and we want to encourage you to apply for it in the weeks that we have yet. Oh yeah, the governor, sorry, that was
Gracias. Well, thank you. It's very gratifying to be here with these workers, and you hear the voice of literally millions across the state, and folks who, as you heard, in the early days of the pandemic, it's easy to look back now. We've learned so much, and we have so many tools. It's easy to forget what those initial days were like. We were washing off cans of beans from the store. We didn't know how this was spreading, and the lethality of it, especially as we saw in places like Italy, were terrifying. And yet these workers went every single day, as you heard, to protect us, to serve, to help feed us, to take care of our children, to take care of our parents, all of those things. And so this effort to get this hero pay, while it's real and tangible and puts money back in the hands of folks, it's also symbolic of protection of workers and what really matters. I want to thank a few folks who are here first. I want to thank our lead authors in this, Representative Frazier and Senator Murphy. Your champion work on this, the continuing to try and advocate for it, to resurrect this basically from the dead at different times, all with the idea that this was about workers, and with all of our advocates who are here, Mary Turner and the Minnesota nurses, UFCW, SEIU, too many to name, that understood were there to make sure that workers got what they had certainly earned and what the state wanted to give. And I'm really grateful for all of our organizers and our union organizers fighting for folks that didn't have that ability. To listen to this, being able to organize, is strength in democracy in the workplace. I'm going to give a big thank you also to our Department of Labor and Industry Commissioner, Commissioner Robertson. I don't think it's overstating that Minnesota workers have no greater friend than Rosalind Robertson and the work that she's done to both protect them and to advocate for them. And thank you for getting this up and running. And my guidance to my team was that we were going to get this done. I trusted this leadership, Leader Winkler and his folks, being able to move this through the House. We knew this was coming, so she got to work many months ago to get this thing into place. And I'm glad to report today that over 901,000 Minnesotans have applied. So our reporters who are here are doing the math. We are not done yet. This stays open, as you heard, until July 22nd at 5 p.m. At that time, there will be an approval period. There will also be an appeal period that was worked in. Again, thanking the legislature for their thoughtfulness of breaking down barriers, making sure that folks could apply. You also heard that you can apply in Hmong, Somali, Spanish, and there's access to many others to be able to get this done. We are concerned that communities, again, that are in many cases the most vulnerable and are at the edge and that we're doing the most dangerous work might not have applied yet. We're encouraging them to do so. And this is one that we will do all we can to help. And as you heard so clearly put, there are many different ways to try and advocate for this, but we want to make sure that people know we are trying our best to get this out to you. We know that it's all hands on deck with our teams that are out there. The goal is to get this thing wrapped up on the 22nd, to do our period of appeals, and then the process of getting these checks back in the hands of Minnesotans as quickly as possible. This was a real positive outcome of this legislative session. Much work was left undone, but this needed to happen. And before I have the Lieutenant Governor come and speak, I'd like to give the opportunity for our authors in this to say a few words that made this happen, and maybe how this is a template to get some more done. So, please.
Hey everybody, Cedric Frazier here, currently District 45A. My district will switch to District 43A in the new year. And you can see we're all doing the Minnesota thing. You go, no, you go, no, you go. But I am very happy to be standing here with Senator Murphy. She carried it on the Senate side, and I carried this bill on the House side. As the governor said, it was a labor of love for me, for being able to do something for our workers that showed up day in and day out to make sure that our state stayed on track to come out of this in the most positive way possible. I think we owe thanks to them. The surplus that we have is because of the work that they put in place to keep Minnesotans safe, fed, and moving forward during the time of this pandemic. So please, if you have not applied yet, please apply. And as we continue to go through the process, as the governor stated, it is still open until July 22nd at 5 p.m. So please get those applications in. Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Representative Frazier, Cedric, my friend, and thank you to the governor, the lieutenant governor, to the commissioner, to Leader Winkler, and most importantly, to the coalition of workers who made this possible. I am, always in awe. I am always in awe when we are able to actually accomplish something for the people of Minnesota. Our government isn't meant to be easy. This was such a simple idea, and yet it took us nearly 2 years to get it done. Nearly 2 years over the objections, especially of my Republican colleagues in the leadership in the Minnesota Senate. And it is only because of the persistent voices of the coalition of the workers, and because Minnesotans listened, and because they care and lifted their voices in support, that we actually got this done. I want to echo everybody else. If you have not yet applied, please apply. It is important that you get your application in. This is an important recognition for something that we've all been through together. And then last but not least, I want people to remember that when we stand together and we fight for something we believe in, we can accomplish it. And we did that this session with Frontline worker pay. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. This is a really exciting day, and we are thrilled that many of the workers who supported Minnesota throughout the pandemic will be getting a payment to put in to savings, to purchase new school clothes, to fill up the gas tank, or put towards their rent. Like the governor said, we know that there are still eligible workers out there, and that's one big reason why we are here today, to let folks know that they should apply. Our goal is to try to take down as many barriers as possible to make this as accessible as possible for every eligible applicant. More than 24 frequently asked questions are answered and available in English, Hmong, Somali, and Spanish. Additionally, a general information sheet about frontline worker pay is translated into an additional 20 languages. We've created an outreach toolkit in English, Hmong, Somali, and Spanish, which includes sample text for newsletters, social media posts, graphics, and more. And a video outlining the Frontline Worker Pay Program is also available in American Sign Language, English, Hmong, Somali, and Spanish. So we want to make sure that every eligible frontline worker is able to apply. But most importantly, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who made this possible, to the folks who went to work when it was a very scary time and showed us what it means to be Minnesotan, that we step up for each other, we take care of one another, and now this is a very small way that we can say thank you to all of you. And to the legislators who are here, for your leadership, for your tenacity, for your fight, we are so incredibly grateful. And I'm going to give you the website one more time, and maybe we'll say this a couple more times. It's frontlinepay.mn.gov, frontlinepay.mn.gov. And to Rena, for bringing your members and your workers into this space, having powerful conversations with folks who are on the front lines. To Casey, thank you for being an incredible organizer and being that constant face and someone who kept folks caffeinated. I don't know that I would have been able to get through the pandemic without that as well. And to Priestley, thank you for your message and letting folks know that they can apply, but that they also deserve to apply. Thank you so much for that. And with that, I'll turn it back to the governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Well, thank you, everyone. The word's out there. We got 901,000 folks in. We've got a little over 2 weeks left to take these applications. DLI and our teams at Revenue are all prepared to do the hard work to get this back in people's hands. This is a good Minnesota success story. I think it's exactly right that Senator Murphy's right, that we know this isn't easy. It's not meant to be easy, and in divided legislature in election years, it's even doubly hard. They still got it done because it's the right thing to do for Minnesota. So excited about that. We'll wait to see what our finals numbers are over the next few weeks, but this effort is redoubled to get out there, get the word out, and collect these in. We'll take some questions from everybody. Tom?
We're expecting 667,000 people, I think was the estimate. We're at 901,000 now. I know not all of them have been approved, but these checks going to get markedly smaller.
Well, and I'll talk to the folks on here. I think you're doing the math on this. I want to stay away from doing the exact math on this, but the answer is yes, and I think it's probably one of the reasons, I don't think I'm speaking out of order for these folks, that they advocated for the $1 billion and the expanded pool of folks. But I think, Tom, the answer is yes, they will, and we'll see at the end, as you said, is once these are vetted, they're done, the appeals are done, then we'll have a bottom line number. I certainly, again, don't want to complicate the end of session negotiations that have stalled, but we can always come back to this issue. As we said, we can always come back to this issue based on changing circumstances. And I think the point of the authors was, I think their anticipation was that this would be a bigger pool. I don't think, again, I'm speaking out of that, if we got out. So your question's yes, we don't know that exact answer yet, but it will be divided by that once we get that final numerator.
For folks who have applied, will they not know until after July 22nd if they've been approved, or are they getting denial information closer to?
Rosalind, do you know, I think this, if I recalled right, yeah, we'll talk to folks who've done, our expert who made this happen, I'm sorry.
So the communication will come out after the application period is open to those who are receiving a denial. They will receive an email that specifies why they are being denied and what they need to do to file an appeal during the 15-day appeals period. After the appeals period is over, we will be processing all of the appeals that have been successfully submitted to issue either a reversal of the initial denial or affirm the denial. And then at that point in time, the emails will be going out to all to indicate whether they are ultimately accepted or ultimately denied, and we'll know the dollar amount of the payments at that time.
But are you internally starting to separate these into approved and not approved
We don't know exactly how many the number of applicants that are not qualified. We are moving through a number of different verification processes all at the same time, and we'll know after the application period ends how many people will receive denials and for what reasons.
But you have to know that in advance. I mean, it's not automated that all of a sudden on July 22nd, the website kicks 200,000 people out. You have to be doing some of this work in advance.
We are running the verification process through the different eligibility requirements. So looking at the unemployment insurance threshold, looking at the adjusted gross income threshold, verifying employment eligibility. We're conducting all of that, duplicates, while the process is ongoing. But because there are a number of eligibility criteria, it's possible that you could be denied for more than one, and we don't have a total count at this point in time.
The website is pretty clear about who qualifies and who doesn't. Do you think a lot of people are applying, just throwing mud against the wall, hoping it will stick, and hoping they're going to get approved?
I am not going to comment on what people are thinking, but what we know is we want people to apply if they believe they are eligible. And I think that's the message here today is have people apply. We will run our verification checks and communication will go out to people as to whether or not they've been denied and what they're being denied for.
It's a really good question, Tom. No, thank you for that. It's a really good question, but I think it's not so much throwing anything at the wall. I think people believe, and probably rightfully so, that they're essential workers and they want to be part of this. I know we saw the article about in-home daycare and why they're not part of this. I think the argument was always to try and expand as broadly as we could, but trying in these negotiations, some of those were limited. So I think there's a lot of folks applying in good faith that we're going to have to work through. And again, I think it's being done simultaneously because Theo's question is really is accurate too. I'm really proud of the work this team did in advance of this because this is going to be one of those, this was a massive undertaking on a website with a short window of opportunity with potential for making sure that we're accounting for all the dollars, but we're making sure that there aren't barriers for people who deserve this. A lot of complexities, and at this point in time, it's happening, it's going, and we'll just keep moving.
Could you confirm, please, the dollar amount that we're looking at here, which will be distributed, and then the range which any individual could get?
Well, I'm not gonna speculate. I'll let all of you've got your calculators on your phones. If you're doing the original numbers were predicated on the 660,000 or so applying. We have 901,000. I'm not going to, again, assume how many of those are going to be vetted or appeal process, but it will be divided by that number of what we get at the end.
Can I ask the sponsors a question?
Sure.
I'm not going to use a name. You guys just have to decide. It was my understanding that the number, the estimate of people was already sort of discounted. It wasn't that number that Brian did was not an attempt to total how many people would be eligible. It was an attempt to total how many people would apply. And he sort of assumed that there would be a certain number, 10, 15, 20%, who were eligible and wouldn't apply. So isn't 900 actually maybe close to how many y'all thought were going to be eligible?
I can't give you an exact number, but we did make some assumptions on the numbers that we have. I think what we're seeing is an incredible interest, and like what the governor said is we've got tons of people out there that consider themselves to be essential workers. We knew that going in. We knew that with the negotiations. That's why we worked as hard as we could to broaden the pool, and now we're going to let the process work through, and then we're going to see where folks are at the end of the day.
And to your question, Peter, one of the reasons that as soon as we saw the surplus in the forecast last fall, we called for $1 billion to go into this account because we knew the number could be higher than the 667,000 that was an estimate, and we wanted to make sure that we were prepared for that. And unfortunately, in the negotiations, that fell by the wayside, and so we have $500 million to work with. You're welcome.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since you brought it up, are you more inclined now to call a special session without a signed agreement, despite your prior statements?
Well, I think without the signed agreement makes it very difficult. I spoke with Speaker Hortman this morning again about folks had time to go home. I know all these folks were out amongst folks. We were at parades all over. I was in Eveleth and Gilbert and Nashwauk. Wabac, we see all these places, and I have to tell you, I heard from folks that they want us to get this deal done. These are folks, whether they were talking about transportation funding, whether they were talking about nursing home, child care, or talking about put money back in our pockets. But I think going into a special session without a signed agreement opens up a whole lot of things that would make this more complicated. I am still as committed as I've ever been that we should get this deal done. There's no reason not to. I keep seeing this. I'm not going to question the validity of a statement, but I saw Republican Senate leadership say they offered multiple deals to us. They did the same deal over and over and over. There was no change from the initial position, even though that's not how this works. So I just want to be very clear. The good faith effort to reach an agreement was still there. And I'm still committed, but I would like to have an agreement before we go in, and I'm not getting much response at all. Certainly from the GOP senators are not showing much interest. Speaker Hortman is still trying to find a path forward because I think she, like these folks up here and myself, people could use the money right now. They could use some certainty, and again, leaving federal dollars on the table is just reckless. And I would note, there are states sending back, and the White House noted one of the most effective ways we could fight inflation is state surpluses going back in the forms of checks back to people. There are states doing that. They are Republican states with Republican governors and Republican legislatures that are sending those back to help their citizens. We should do that here. So I'm interested in doing it.
So are you saying you won't, or you just want it this?
We're not at an agreement yet. I'm not going to close the door on this. I keep saying it, and I did not get confirmation from Republican leadership, but it would be naive on all of our parts as that work in this business that it's difficult for some folks to do this before the August primary. They're being primaried, and I think that the desire to do anything then is less. After that point, again, if anybody's out walking those parades, they're hearing an earful from people. They want us to get this deal done. That's what they want us to do.
Governor, maybe you've been briefed on this, at the pace the applications are coming in, are you expecting this with 16 days to go over 1 million? I mean, is that a
That's a
fair
great point.
assumption based on the recent?
You know, the irony of this, I don't think it's irony, it's what we're doing is, I hope so, because that's what we're here for. I'm trying to encourage people. I do think you're all picked up on this. It's the thing that we knew from the beginning, that the more people we got, the smaller the amount was. I think that's why we were advocating for more. Again, I don't want to add complexity to an already complex subject, but there's nothing that says now that we see that the need was much greater, these folks were out there, to revisit that. But yeah, I would assume, I don't know if I want to speak on how they're coming in, it sure seems that way.
We've definitely dropped off since the first week, but.
Because what we have 600,000 or so in the first week, is that correct, or was it not quite that much? 500. Yeah, we were tracking, and that was a lot, and that showed you where folks were at. But yeah, I'm here to try and get as many people as possible with an understanding that that will lower the payment for individuals, but these families need this. And I think now it is a thank you. It's like Lieutenant Governor said, each family's circumstances are different. This $500 makes summer a lot different for folks. You can have a lot better summer. Sure.
There are a number of workers who've reached out to me and said they can't access the application because it's online only.
Yeah.
What should those people do?
I'm gonna have, it's a great question.
So we've been hearing that at the Department of Labor and Industry as well, and we've encouraged people to access maybe public access to computers. We at DLI have taken walk-ins and helped through our computer system there. There are also legal kiosks located around the state that we've reached a partnership with to have the application right up on the front of the legal kiosk. So lots of different public availability of the technology needed to submit the application.
Is there a level at which these are not federally taxable, or is every dollar that someone gets out of this federally taxable?
So the payments were excluded from state taxes in the legislation, but they are federally taxable. I believe so. I'm not a tax expert, I should say that, but they are federally taxable payments.
Two more questions.
Okay, I've got a quick one. Just for the application process, is it for individuals, or could a business apply, or like two from one family apply, or something like that?
It's individual.
Governor, do you think some people will get disappointed if they're under that 750 number that, was talked about a lot?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, because we did talk about that a lot. We advocated to put more into this to make the difference. And I would note that that we made an offer. The question came on this. We actually made the initial offer on this to have money for small businesses in the same way as addition, and the Republican Senate turned that down point blank in a negotiation, that there would be a matching amount of dollars. So, sure.
Stay right here with me if you want.
Sure.
Brianna, I was worried about that as well, and there was a news story in the Star Tribune about frontline worker pay a couple of weekends ago, and I got a note from somebody afterwards who said that she understood that as a frontline worker, that she might get less than $750 that we thought would be the amount that people got. But what was most important to her is that we together were recognizing the contributions and the sacrifices that she made, and she was grateful for that regardless of the amount.
I think that's a lot of the statement, but I think there's more we can do. I do think that these workers are not in isolation. There's opportunities here, educational opportunities, there's childcare opportunities, there's housing opportunities. The deal that the House crafted on the renter's credit is spectacular, I might say, in a tax bill. Did incredible work on that. There's a lot of stuff that we can still do, and I think hearing Senator Murphy say, she's exactly right. People come here to do good work for people. It doesn't matter what time it is. I just hope we continue to do these types of bipartisan proposals and bills and get them over the finish line. We want folks out there to apply, but we can continue to come back and do more. But it's a good thing. You know the applications. You know that there's help out there. These union folks are out there to help too, to get people in, to make sure you have access. If you're eligible, apply. So with that, we would, any off-topic questions? I'll let these folks go if we have any. Glad to take a few.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you have two more.
Do you all want to leave?
Yeah, then you don't have to take these off topics. So thank you. Yeah, we'll go off topic. We'll take a few. Got some.
I mean, you can stay, but it's,
Yeah. Ryan, you truly might want to stay. There may be a question directed towards you. So I'm not putting questions into these people, but you might be in the news.
So, Governor, there was another night of mayhem in Minneapolis on Monday night. There has been one council member who thinks the National Guard should come in. Short of that, because there are some obvious issues there, are you talking to the mayor? Has he asked for more state patrol to come in? And are you prepared to do something like that?
Yeah, well, first of all, the behavior is unacceptable. It is against the law. It's dangerous. And as we've seen across the country, that we cannot allow these to escalate. With that being said, we have and are always in close communication with the city, with the county. Over approximately the last 6 weeks or so, the stepped up enforcement you've seen with state resources, predominantly the State Patrol, but to include BCA especially, has had an impact, and we're seeing it through numbers. Certainly any one of these incidents is too many, but we've processed nearly 500 firearms through BCA to connection to other crimes. We've have 109 firearms that have been seized in connection to crimes, 171 arrests, and we've seen a significant decline almost to the point of making sure where it needs to be at zero tolerance on the street racing. The State Patrol's assistance to the Minneapolis police and that task force they put together, we were predominantly to be high visibility neighborhoods, but we were also there, specifically our mission was on the street racing and some of the dangerous behavior we've seen there. We've assisted and been able to reduce the number of the carjackings, I think predominantly through the use of State Patrol air assets that we've been able to use, and then BCA work together. We had a significant number of outstanding warrants that were executed in conjunction with the Department of Corrections that amounted to a lot of folks being pulled back in. With that being said, The State Patrol, again, a limited number we had. Since 2019, I've been asking for legislative support to expand the size of the State Patrol. We have not garnered that. We also asked to have an expansion of the Fusion Center, which is a coordination between all these units. In the absence of that, we'll be redoubling our high visibility efforts with the City of Minneapolis over the next few months. We'll continue to provide as much assistance as we can. I would also like to thank the State Patrol for this. Nationally and in Minnesota, we've seen record high highway fatalities. Minnesota's highway fatalities have dropped off significantly over the last 8 weeks, and I would say it's in conjunction with the HEAT program that we've initiated and a much more heavy presence. So we are in communication. We are working for ways. We're looking for the most effective ways. I think most people know there has not been a request for National Guard support, and as many of you know in here, National Guard area specific, military occupational skills specifically, while we do have military police, they still, because of legal requirements, need to be partnered with law enforcement. And the real issue still in Minneapolis is the significant understaffing that we see, especially when you need to step up for incidents like we saw on the 4th of July. So certainly tragic. I'd like to extend my my deepest sympathies to the state of Illinois and all the folks who were killed in the Highland Park act of terrorism. And just again, too many guns, too much acceptance of the violence that's happening, and we're here to partner with any of our jurisdictions to make sure we reduce those. So you will see an increased presence. You will see us using the assets. You will still see us to continue to build on those numbers. And again, we view this as a zero sum, but we do have to track trends, and there's encouragement. But I have to tell everyone, we all know this, summer months always in the north and in Minnesota see an increase in these things. We have to continue to tackle that.
So has Minneapolis officially asked for more state patrol help, not necessarily National Guard, or not?
No, they've asked for the help to do the mission. And again, what I tell people is it's not as if we're just going to go in and displace the Minneapolis police. They have primary jurisdiction. They do their usual. Our work with them, and what they requested was assistance, especially on the carjacking, and that was the air assets of the helicopters. They asked us for some of the research work, especially around gangs and guns. That was the BCA work. And they asked us then on the State Patrol, specifically dealing with the street racing. And we confiscated, I believe, a dozen cars this weekend. We had several people arrested for over 100 miles an hour. But the number of incidents that we were seeing before the State Patrol's task force around street racing were horrific, incredibly dangerous. They're in a much better place. But they're still asking for us to assist. We need to continue to build that. The City of Minneapolis, Hennepin County, and our surrounding jurisdictions need to continue to work together. And this is a multifaceted approach. We know this. This is about having the number of folks on the streets to do the work. It's also about making sure there's opportunities back upstream to stop these incidents from happening originally.
Governor, there's been some reporting over the last few days that not every legislator maybe fully understood what they were voting on with the THC edibles law. Did you fully understand what you were signing? And do you think this changes the conversation at all around legalization?
Yes, I fully understood what we were signing. I think it moves forward to a more sane policy. I'm grateful to the legislature for thinking of this. I've stood on the legalization for many, many years. My aspect of this started with the VA of an alternative to opioids and pain management. The idea that you would be criminalized for crossing state lines as a injured veteran to get medical cannabis was just ludicrous to me. I didn't believe Minnesota's medical cannabis law was as open as it could have been. I trust adults to make some of these decisions. And the legislature, Leader Winkler's here, and I don't know, Ryan, if you want to follow up. I can only speak from our office. We knew it was there. We knew what it was. I think it's a step forward, but I don't think it's the ultimate step. We need to move forward towards the full legalization, making sure that we have the office that we've already set up and are ready to go, to make sure that we have regulatory framework that works really well. And then I think we need to have the conversation that I've had in conjunction with expungements of cannabis convictions that we've seen that are disproportionately hit communities of color, that we could do some restorative justice to move back in that direction. So I think it's a good first step, but I think it should now show that it's where Minnesotans want us to be, and we should move in that direction. So Ryan, I don't know if you want to add.
Representative Winkler, I just wanted to ask you, do you think this might make it more difficult to go to full recreational recreational marijuana.
This might be a better one for Ryan, I hope not.
That's what,
Yeah.
If Republicans now feel like you pulled one over on them now, couldn't this just increase their resistance?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's accurate that they had anything pulled over on them at all. When we first introduced this legislation, it was heard in committee. The major provisions of the bill were reviewed with the Board of Pharmacy. They were reviewed with the governor's administration. A Republican Senate author was carrying the bill in the Senate. It went through multiple stops in the House. If the Senate had actually given the bill a hearing, they might have learned a bit more. But then it was discussed in conference committee and voted out of the House and Senate at the end of session. So there was no lack of clarity about what was in the bill ever. I don't know what the motivation for Republicans is to say now they didn't understand it, but I don't think that's the case. I think that they did. The full legalization is going to happen because the public demands it. Eventually this is going to happen. People recognize the injustice of prohibition and what that does to the people disproportionately affected by our criminal justice system in pursuing cannabis prohibition. People know that this can be safely consumed by the public with the right regulatory framework. And the amount of THC that we now have legal for beverages and edibles in Minnesota is safe for people to consume, and now there's going to be some regulatory structure around them, which is better than we were off a year ago. So I actually think this moves us forward, and I think Republicans will have to get on board as well, because the public will demand it.
Sure, we can do another one. I agree with that, Tom. I think Leader Winkler is exactly right about that. I think it's the public asking for this, and I trust adults to make their decisions.
But if this is a good thing, do you not think it should have come with licensing, taxation perhaps, regulation, enforcement, almost all four of those things?
None of those would have gotten through the Republican Senate. So it wouldn't have happened at all.
So you create this chaotic situation, as we were told yesterday, that sometimes you need disruption and chaos to find clarity.
I would argue we took a step forward.
No, you did say the reason you didn't put it through taxes is because you didn't want to draw that much more attention to it because it wouldn't pass. I mean, does this seem like
It's a step forward.
is it not?
I think it's a step forward. I don't think it's an all or nothing. Republicans have resisted, as they do on many issues. They've used their veto power of a 3-senator majority to stop all kinds of good things for Minnesota. And on this one, they chose. I mean, the vast majority of people, my God, South Dakota did it. And here we sat. They wouldn't allow us to do anything on this. And I think we took a step forward that trusts Minnesotans, that makes sense. I just think it was a step forward. So I certainly, if you'd like to come back today, and we would offer the full legalization that we did last year, we'd give them that opportunity. But I'm in agreement with the leader on this. It'd be very hard to go backwards after they've done that. So, all right. Thank you all.
Thank you. That's it for today.
Happy 4th, everyone. I didn't get to see you all. So. Thank you. Thanks for sticking around.
Thanks for the invitation.
We'll do it right now. All right. Yeah. All right, quick photo. Okay.
Yeah, sorry to keep you guys waiting. Which is the best?
Apparently we're weaving.
Yeah, I guess. I think I was the first one on, so I probably should have just waited.
Usually the way it works, isn't it? I don't even know who's. Mine is one of these. I think it's this one.
I sure hope this is mine. Otherwise, you're doing somebody else's.